It's your friendly math tutor, Miss C here, and today we are solving trigonometric equations in the domain 0 degrees to 360 degrees, and we're doing it with a twist. You're going to notice both equations have sine and cosine squared. So that affects our graph, and that affects the number of solutions we get. So let's dive into the graphs first so we know what we're dealing with. So we're only looking at 0 to 360 degrees. So here is the graph of sine normally. Right? Drew that too long. So here's the deal. Anytime we square something, right? Like if it's a negative number and it gets squared, all those negative values become positive values. So you can see this negative part on our graph, they're going to become positive. So our graph is actually going to look like this. So almost like two mountains. What that means is when I go ahead and draw in 0.81, right? Because our maximum is positive 1 and our minimum is now 0. Like if 0.81 is here, look at how many solutions I get. I get double the amount of solutions. I get 4 instead of 2. So normally we would have these two solutions. Because it's squared, we also get these two. So we know we're now getting 4 solutions. So that's the difference. So let's go ahead and solve. So we have to get sine of x by itself. That means we need to unsquare or square root both sides. So that will be our first step. So I'm taking the square root of both sides. When I do that, I'm left with sine of x on this side. And here's where we need to be careful. We're not just getting 0.9 or 9/10, we're getting plus or minus because 0.9 times 0.9 equals 0.81 and negative 0.9 times negative 0.9 equals 0.81. So that's how we end up with 4 solutions. So at this point, I'm going to split my equations into 2. So I'm going to have sine of x equals positive 0.9 and sine of x equals negative 0.9. And then we're just going to solve like we normally do. I'm going to take the arc sine of both sides. Okay. When I do that, the arc sine of x leaves me with x, and the arc sine or the inverse sine of 0.9 gives me 64.158 degrees. Okay, that is one solution. That is, I'm going to just put a point here. That's this solution right here. Okay, but sine has a symmetry property, and its symmetry property allows us to have two values within 180 degrees, because if you look at the graph, you'll see that this value happens between 0 and 180 degrees. So our symmetry property says we say 180 minus 64.58 degrees. And by the way, I should have done something here. This should be approximately equal to because I rounded. So sorry about that. Okay, and this is going to equal x. So when I do that, I get 115.842 degrees, and that's approximately equal to x. So we found the two solutions we normally would have found. So we found these two guys. And now we get to do it again for the other side. So here's the difference. I'm going to shortcut this because if I were doing this on my own, I wouldn't write all these steps. I'm going to say I'm taking the inverse sine of both sides this way. And when I do that, I get x equals, all right, the inverse sine or the arc sine of negative 0.9 is negative 64.158. This is not within our domain. So I'm going to add 360 degrees to it. We'll come back to that. But I'm also going to say that x is approximately equal to 180 minus negative 64.158 degrees. That's our symmetry property. So we need to do both of these things. So when I add 360 degrees, I get a value of x is approximately equal to 295.84 degrees. So that's one solution. And x is approximately equal to 244.158 degrees. So you can see both of these guys. Here's one, here's the other. They also fall two values within 180 degrees. All right, so that is the first equation. I've already checked these answers. So if you are doing this on a test, if you're doing this from homework, the best way to make sure that you are on track is to pop these answers in for X, and you're going to get approximately 0.81. Not exactly, because we rounded. That's why we have the approximately equal to signs. So I would say always check, especially on an assessment or a test, always check to make sure that you didn't inadvertently type something wrong into your calculator. Okay, the good news is we approach sine the same, or the cosine, the same way. Here's the difference with cosine. It's a little wonkier. So the graph of cosine normally looks like, I always call it the valley graph, right? So in 360 degrees, this is what we get. So this is the part that ends up becoming positive. So we end up with something that looks like this. So we are going to have two values. We're looking at 0.16 here. So we'll say this is our line. So we're going to have two values that are really close together, and we're going to have two other values that are really close together. So let's check that out. I'm starting by taking the square root of both sides. Okay, and when I do that, I end up with the cosine of x equals, remember, I'm the one doing the square rooting, which means it could be 0.4 times 0.4 to make 0.16, or negative 0.4 times negative 0.4 to make 0.16. So I've got those two. I'm going to go ahead and split these. And then we're going to solve. I'm going to take the inverse cosine, or the arc cosine of both sides. And when I do that, I get 66.42 degrees. That is a solution within our domain. That would be this one. Okay. And we also get the property, the symmetry property says we also get a value that's equally distant from zero. So negative 66.42 degrees. So this is outside of our domain. So I'm going to go ahead and add 360 degrees to it. And when I do that, I get 293.578 degrees. I'm being very bad about my approximately equal signs, so sorry about that. These should both be approximately equal. Okay, all of these. So I guess don't do as I do. Make sure you go back and correct that if you do what I've done. So those are, if we were looking, that would be this, and that would be this. So just as a reminder, even though my graph is not looking super great, the first place that cosine touches down is at 90 degrees. So that's why this is 66.42 degrees there. Okay, now we're going to do the same thing to the other one. We take the arc cosine, the inverse cosine of both sides, and we get x equals 113.578 degrees. Okay, that's within bounds, but we also know that our symmetry property says we negate that to find our other value. And I did it again, you guys. It needs to be approximately equals on all of these because I've rounded my value. Okay, negative 113.578 degrees is not within our domain, so I'm going to add the periodic property, which says that cosine repeats. Every value of cosine repeats every 360 degrees. When I do that, look, I did my equal signs, my approximately equal signs right. I get 246.422, oh no, 22 degrees. Okay, ran out of room. Okay, so this is the 246. Sorry, that's the 113 degrees, and this is the 246 degrees. Okay, that is how you solve trigonometric functions when they are squared. If you found this video helpful, please like it so other people can see it. And don't forget to subscribe for more math videos. Till next time, remember, you've got this.